This is Global Currency Insight, and today we're diving into one of the most talked about subjects in the currency speculation community. Many investors who have held onto Iraqi dinars for years are buzzing with new energy after hearing claims that live exchanges may finally be taking place. For people who have followed this story closely, the idea of an exchange window opening has always been the big hope. Now, with reports circulating that activity inside banks and financial systems could be signaling movement, some believe that the long wait might be reaching a turning point. The buzz is strong, but it's important to step back and carefully examine what is actually being said, what can be verified, and how it fits into the bigger picture of Iraq's current economic and political environment. This video will walk through the details, highlight the claims being discussed, and explore how they connect to Iraq and Vietnam's broader currency situations in 2025. The main attention right now comes from statements that suggest banks are preparing for shifts in how they handle Iraqi dinar transactions. These updates are being described as unusual, with some saying they look like early steps in a process that could lead to larger changes in currency values. To many, this sounds like the long-awaited revaluation, or RV, that has been talked about for years. The speculation has only grown louder because some claim that international banks are also making adjustments to their procedures as though preparing to coordinate with Iraq's financial system. What makes this moment different from past rumors, according to these claims, is the timing and the way different pieces of the story are being connected. The idea is that instead of being random chatter, there are now visible steps inside banking systems that align with what people have expected might happen if an RV were truly around the corner. But how much of this is real movement versus speculation is the key question. When talking about currency changes, especially something as major as a revaluation, it's important to understand what would need to be in place for it to occur. Currency values don't just rise or fall overnight without underlying economic and political support. For the Iraqi dinar to suddenly gain significant value, Iraq's economy would need to be stable, growing, and able to support a stronger exchange rate. This involves many different factors: political unity, reliable oil production, financial infrastructure that meets international standards, and stronger relationships with other countries. Without these conditions, sudden shifts in currency values would be very difficult to sustain. So while it's easy to get caught up in reports of banks preparing or making changes, the real test is whether Iraq's fundamentals are ready for such a move. That is why many observers stress looking at the bigger picture rather than just isolated updates. Iraq's economy remains heavily dependent on oil, which accounts for most of the country's government revenue. Oil prices have been fairly steady recently, but Iraq still faces challenges in terms of production levels and the infrastructure needed to maintain or expand capacity. Beyond oil, Iraq continues to struggle with political divisions and regional tensions that affect stability. These issues make it harder to attract long-term investment and build a diversified economy. The banking system, while making progress, still lags behind in terms of international integration. All of these elements matter because a stronger dinar would require global confidence in Iraq's ability to support and maintain that rate. Without progress in these areas, large shifts in currency values would be difficult to justify. This context shows why even if certain banking activities are being reported, they may not automatically translate into an imminent revaluation. Part of what keeps the dinar speculation story alive is the constant flow of updates and interpretations about what banks or governments might be doing. These updates often use language that sparks excitement, such as live exchanges, system changes, or timing windows. For those holding the currency, it creates a sense that something big could happen at any moment. But history shows that similar claims have surfaced many times before, only for the official exchange rate to remain essentially unchanged. This pattern has made some people cautious, while others continue to believe that one day the updates will prove correct. Understanding this cycle is important because it helps explain why so many continue to watch closely, even when the evidence isn't always verifiable. It also highlights the need for careful evaluation and separating speculation from confirmed facts. Another piece of this story is the connection some make between the Iraqi dinar and the Vietnamese Dong. Many holders of dinar also own Dong, believing that the two currencies could potentially see changes around the same time. Vietnam's economy has grown steadily with rising GDP, stronger trade relationships, and efforts to modernize monetary policy. This progress is often cited as a reason why some think Vietnam could be part of a coordinated currency event. The idea is that Vietnam and Iraq, while very different, both represent opportunities for major currency shifts tied to developing economies. However, in modern economics, coordinated revaluations of multiple currencies are extremely rare. Each country's exchange rate is typically based on its own market forces and central bank decisions. Still, the possibility of Vietnam being linked to Iraq in this narrative keeps interest high among investors who hold both currencies. When evaluating reports of live exchanges, it's crucial to consider what would actually be required for such exchanges to be happening. For a bank to provide a higher rate for Iraqi dinars, there would need to be an official change recognized by Iraq's central bank and supported internationally. Large transactions are also closely monitored under anti-money laundering rules and financial regulations. Banks cannot simply offer new exchange rates without documentation and reporting requirements. If such changes were truly underway, there would be visible, verifiable evidence in the form of official statements, updated currency table, or announcements from financial institutions. Without those confirmations, it remains speculation. This doesn't mean it's impossible, but it means claims of exchanges need to be approached carefully and with a focus on what can be independently checked. Those who have followed the dinar story for years know how emotionally draining it can be. There are countless stories of people who bought large amounts of currency believing a revaluation was just around the corner. Many of them spent years listening to updates, tracking rumors, and waiting for the life-changing event to happen. For some, the time and energy devoted has been greater than the actual financial investment. Over time, many have realized that while it's fine to hold sold some currency as a speculative position, it's important not to let it dominate their financial planning. This perspective helps highlight the difference between treating dinar holdings as a small speculative interest versus expecting it to be the foundation of future wealth. Managing expectations has become one of the most important lessons for long-time holders. It's also worth noting the regulatory challenges that would come with any sudden revaluation. If the dinar's value were to jump significantly, exchanges would involve large sums of money moving across borders. Governments and financial institutions would monitor these transactions very closely to prevent fraud, money laundering, and other financial crimes. This means the process would not be simple or hidden. Instead, it would require clear guidelines, coordination among regulators, and transparency for banks handling the exchanges. Without these measures, any rapid shift in currency values could create confusion and instability. This is another reason why major currency events usually unfold gradually with extensive communication, rather than overnight surprises. For people who are considering exchanging dinars now, most banks continue to offer rates close to Iraq's official exchange rate, which has stayed relatively stable for years. Some banks may not handle dinar transactions at all, while others may require advance notice for large exchanges. Those who purchase dinars through dealers may find that the value they receive is lower than what they paid, especially after factoring in dealer markups and fees. This reality is often different from the expectations created by speculative updates. By checking with multiple banks and verifying current rates directly, currency holders can get a clearer sense of what's actually available, rather than relying solely on speculation. One of the challenges in this community is that speculation often blurs the line between hope and fact. Updates describing bank activity or system changes may sound convincing, but without documentation they remain unverified. This is why it's so important to look for independent confirmation before assuming that a revaluation is happening. Asking questions like, is there an official statement from the central bank? Or is mainstream financial media covering this development? Can help separate fact from rumor. If the answer is no, then the information should be treated as unconfirmed. Understanding this distinction protects people from making major financial decisions based on incomplete or unverified information. Looking at Iraq's broader situation today, there are still significant challenges to overcome before a stronger dinar could be supported. Political divisions continue to affect the government's ability to move forward with reforms. Infrastructure remains in need of major investment, especially in energy and public services. The banking system, while improving, still lacks